to infinity and beyond.
This is me. This is how I win.
Were you rushing or were you dragging? Answer!
You're a wizard, Harry.
Say what again? Say what again? I dare you.
No, I am your father.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
And here we go.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back inside the film room. Zach Goins here with Johnny Sobchak for another edition of your favorite movie and TV podcast. Johnny, how are you doing on this wonderful, wonderful Sunday afternoon?
I am doing pretty swell, Zach. I'm excited because as listeners may or may not know, Euphoria season 2 is premiering tonight. So I'm looking forward to that. No movie for me this weekend, no new release. So kind of just look at
full attention on Zendaya, on
Yeah.
Hunter Schafer, on the crew over at HBO. I'm with you there. I've been rewatching some of season 1 to get caught back up, and I am just like you. I'm thrilled to watch it. By the time people are listening to this, they'll have already seen it and they'll know the excellence that we're hopefully going to be seeing tonight. But we had to switch up the schedule, so we will be talking about it next week on the podcast. But that's a good reason to be excited about a Sunday. Before we were recording, you were bashing Sundays, but now that Euphoria is back, that's a big thing to look forward to.
Yeah, we had the Succession shaped hole in our heart, I think, the last few weeks, and I am excited to get some great TV back in my life, like new TV, because I've been rewatching plenty of great stuff.
Right.
But this is, I think, the thing that throughout the last year plus, I think first time I watched Euphoria was summer 2020. So it's been a long time coming.
Right. I was looking at the math today. I tweeted it's 889 days, I believe, since the season 2 or since the season 1 finale.
Wow.
So because that was in August of 2019, 889 days ago. So
that's pretty nuts.
Obviously we got the December 2020 first special and then the January 21 of the second special episode. But since we've been like in season with Euphoria, it's been a minute.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, that's one thing. I watched the first special. I believe it came out around Christmas 2020. And that was with Coleman Domingo and Zendaya, kind of the bottle episode where they're at the diner the whole time. It's a fantastic episode, and I highly recommend checking out if you have not seen it already. But I still have to watch the Jules-centered special. I had kind of put that off and been waiting to get around to it. So I'm going to watch that. I'm going to watch that this afternoon before.
Yeah, you can use that as your appetizer before 9:00 tonight. But I obviously like with the Zendaya Coleman Domingo episode, and then you'll see with the Jules one that I've realized as I'm watching back like the actual season, like those are 2 fantastic episodes of TV, but it's so different because it is, like you said, like the bottle episode, it's more like dialogue heavy, just the 2. It doesn't have the chaos that we love about Euphoria, because I was watching the Nate centered episode last night, and that's just like batshit crazy. So I am excited to kind of get back to that as everybody just starts running around again. But beyond Euphoria, we've got a big episode today. We're talking our first look at 2022. So we've got our news like usual. I'll be talking about the 355, the first new release of the year that I have seen. I opted to, this was on a whim. It wasn't on the schedule, but I saw it last night. So I figured, why not? I let Johnny sit this one out because it's not quite his speed. It's not quite most people's speed, I would say, based on the critical reception, but we'll get into that. And then last week we threw it back and looked at all of our favorites from 21. now we are going to look forward with our top 5 most anticipated movies of 2022. So that'll be a lot of fun. Johnny and I will be going back and forth counting that down. So that's what we've got on the schedule today. First off, as always, go ahead, make sure you're subscribed to the Rewind newsletter. If you love Inside the Film Room, that's what you need to do to make sure that you're getting it all delivered straight to your inbox. All of our giveaways start there. Our podcast episodes, our written reviews, everything on the website. It's packaged up and sent directly to you. So you can find that on our social media channels, on the website. Subscribe to the Rewind. Johnny, what's going on? What's been happening in the last week, in your first week of 2022?
So I have on the movie side of things, I did some pretty big rewatches. I watched my first watch of 2022 as well was Psycho, Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho, very famous, influential film, of course, that I knew quite a lot about. Pretty much knew the plot front to back for the most part, the significance of it. But all that said, I haven't seen a lot of Hitchcock films. I know he directed many, many films, but I've only seen maybe 5 or so, including Psycho. And I wouldn't say I'm like the biggest fan of his, but I do think he's an incredible filmmaker, and I do really like some of his movies. And Psycho was no different. It really holds up. The 4K is pretty awesome, really great quality. And I had a great time actually sitting down, finally watching it, and now I kind of know all the ins and outs. And then after that, I watched the 4K of Rear Window as well, and that is a film that I'd seen previously a few years ago, just the once, and I really liked it. I think that was my favorite Hitchcock, and my top Hitchcock until I recently watched Vertigo again and moved that up. But then watching this one again and in 4K, like it's just an incredible film. Technically, it's perfect. It's so entertaining. It's so gripping. I think it's genuinely one of the best films ever made, as well as Vertigo with Hitchcock. I think those are his top 2 from what I've seen so far. And if you haven't seen it, it's an older film. It's from the 50s. I think it's the oldest film that I've seen in 4K so far, actually, because it's from like 54, I think 52. And it looks, the transfer again is really great, and that helps certainly. But I think any way you can watch it, give it a look, because it feels like a modern movie from a story perspective, and from technically it just does so much that innovates. And so those were really fun. And then on the flip side of that, I had 2 other big rewatches, and those were the Batman Tim Burton.
I was about to say, I know you're getting cranked up for Battinson with some in-depth study of the character.
Yeah, so these were movies that I watched all the time when I was a kid. The VHS tapes, I was like literally wearing them out on a daily basis. And I, of course, when you're a kid, you're not looking at it with a critical eye, of course. I mean, I rewatched just as often Batman Forever and Batman and Robin, the Joel Schumacher Batman movies, which are not good, to say. I think that's not a hot take by any means. But I just as much enjoyed those. But rewatching these for the first time in literally years. I mean, I think really once the Dark Knight trilogy came around, and I was very, those were formative films for me because of my age and where I was like when I saw them. So once those kind of came into my life, the Burton films, the Schumacher films were really kind of a non-factor, like a non sequitur. And then of course Batfleck was a big deal for me as well in the last like half decade or so. So on that note, it was very interesting to come back and watch these. I watched them in 4K, the 4K transfers, and those are gorgeous as well. They hold up very, very nicely. I think for me, Batman Returns is better. I like that one more. And I think Catwoman especially boosts that one. And I really like the Christmas setting as well. And that transfer, again, is like top tier. I think it's one of the best 4K discs that I've seen. And so getting to watch it around Christmas time, during the holidays, as we're kind of closing out the holiday season. And also getting to see Catwoman and Penguin in their first real film iterations now with the new Catwoman, Zoe Kravitz and Colin Farrell's Penguin. coming up. I think that was really cool as well to see. And I was surprised by how much I really still liked it and could kind of deal with the style. I think the Tim Burton style, you had, I don't know if you love it or hate it necessarily, but in 89, I think it doesn't work quite as well. And he's kind of still trying to figure out how to balance it with the Batman mythos and to make it accessible. Whereas I think in Batman Returns, he does strike a pretty good balance. And I would say from what I've seen of Tim Burton, I think that's probably my favorite Tim Burton movie is Batman Returns. Again, not one of my favorite filmmakers by any means. And I probably should see more of his stuff, but that was just a really fun kind of walk down memory lane. And I would definitely recommend checking out both of those because I think to varying degrees, they're pretty good. And then lastly, for TV, I did watch a little bit of Euphoria, probably about halfway through the first season right now. But the big thing that I've been working on is Atlanta. I watched Atlanta seasons 1 and 2 when they were coming out every week live back in like 2016, 2017, I think. And easily one of the best shows of all time, no debate. And I had not seen them in a long time because they're on Hulu and I didn't have access to Hulu. And, the show has been off the air. It's been on hiatus for quite a long time because, of course, Donald Glover, Lakeith Stanfield, Zazie Beetz, Brian Tyree Henry. These are very popular working actors these days, and very rightfully so. I mean, they're all incredibly talented. And so now they're all back together. Season 3 is coming out at the end of March, and season 4 after that will be the final season. So coming back and watching season 1, I just finished watching it the other day. I think it was 10 episodes. And it holds up. I mean, it's only been a few years, of course, but like, it's amazing how good the show is. Like every minute of every episode just feels so unbelievably well crafted. From a creative, artistic point of view with the technical side of things, the camera work, the use of music. It's just the editing. It's just a very inventive show. And then, of course, the writing, Donald Glover doing a lot of that and working with some others to come up with just very unique characters and very unique stories. Not just on an episode basis, but also the overarching, narrative. It's just very, it's unlike anything else you'll really see. And honestly, the best comparison that I can think of, my favorite show of all time, TV wise, is probably, and what I would say is the best, is probably Twin Peaks, David Lynch's Twin Peaks from the 90s, and then The Return a few years ago on Showtime. And this is the only TV show or series, in my opinion, really any work that I have seen that I would say is genuinely Lynchian and has like a very otherworldly vibe to it, and is so cryptic at times and hard to decipher. And it's funny too, because of course WandaVision took everyone by storm about a year ago, and it was like, oh my god, this is Lynchian, this is like Twin Peaks. This is it's just a different level, different surrealistic feel to it, that I think it genuinely, and the way it works with the location and the characters and everything, it's just very it's unreal. If you have not seen Atlanta, you absolutely have to watch it. If you have only seen it the one time like I did, give it a rewatch. It's even better than you remember, I guarantee it. And get ready for season 3, which comes out, like I said, at the end of March on FX, because I'm more excited for that than I am for Euphoria, which says a lot, because I love
big statement.
I love Euphoria, and I've seen Euphoria a couple times now. But I'm telling you, man, the work that is going on with Atlanta, if you haven't seen it, I really recommend checking it out, because it's really unlike anything else. I know Euphoria is unique in a lot of ways, but I think there are other closer comparisons, like Skins. A lot of people have referenced, of course, the UK show as one kind of analog, but I think Atlanta is very unique, and just does a lot of different things than pretty much any other show, I would say.
I watched Atlanta I don't think I finished the first season, but when it was live on TV, it was when I was in college, so it was kind of hard to keep up with a live show on television. But I definitely watched the first half of the first season, and I remember really liking it. And obviously I'm a huge Donald Glover, Childish Gambino fan. So you've got me hooked. I need to, what'd you say, end of March, I think, for the return of season 3. So I'll have to
Yes.
to knock that out. 21 episodes by then. That's easy work. That's easy work right
Yeah,
there.
March 24th is the return date on FX. So mark your calendars, folks.
Consider it marked. But my for Christmas I got the 4K set for going back to the previous discussion. I got the 4K of the Christopher Nolan Batman trilogy, the Dark Knight trilogy. So I have not thrown it all the way back to the Tim Burton movies that you were referencing, but I will at least be watching the Nolan films in anticipation of the Batman. But haven't started that yet. What I have been doing the past week was doing a lot of TV watching again. Once again, like I said, saw the 355. That was the only thing on the movie front for me, which we'll get into in a bit. But checking out some exciting TV shows that are coming soon this January. For myself personally, How I Met Your Mother was always a huge show for me. And How I Met Your Father is coming out in just a couple weeks. January 18th, it's hitting Hulu. It's the sequel series, not a spinoff, not a reboot. They're calling it a sequel series, but it's a whole new story, whole new cast, but the same premise, with Hilary Duff as the leading lady, and she's telling the story to her son in the future of how she met his father. But embargo lifts later this week. I think it's on Thursday the 13th. If all goes well, we will have a video review of that up on our YouTube channel, so you can check that out. But I know a lot of How I Met Your Mother fans. This has been a project that's kind of been on and off again since basically How I Met Your Mother ended. So people have been kind of mixed feelings on whether they want it to happen or whether they don't, but it is happening now, and I will break it all down on Thursday for you. And another one that is coming soon is The After Party, which is a murder mystery comedy drama on Apple TV Plus that comes out January 28th. So we've got a couple weeks until that, but I've gotten to check out the first couple episodes there. It's an all-star cast, honestly, led by Tiffany Haddish is like the lead detective, which I know it could go either way with her. But we've got Dave Franco in there, Sam Richardson. It's by Phil Lord and Chris Miller. So Lord and Miller, like the people behind the Lego Movie and Spider-Verse and so many 22 Jump Street, 21 Jump Street, are the writing and directing a lot of the episodes. But Ben Schwartz, who's John Ralphio from Parks and Rec, Alana Glazer as well. So a lot of good comedians are in this show. Ike Barinholtz as well. But again, if all goes to plan, we will have a video review of that on the website as well. That'll be later in the month. I think January 18th is the embargo for that. But beyond those two previews, I've been keeping up with Book of Boba Fett. Second episode was this past week. And I'm not, have you dived in yet, Johnny? I assume not.
I have not.
I'm still holding out hope, but I'm not particularly impressed with what I've seen so far. It's just, season 1 of Mando, we may have talked about this to an extent last week. I liked season 2 of Mandalorian way more than season 1. Season 1 was very much just that, like, the space western serial episodes of like, okay, now the ship broke down on this planet and here's our quest. Now we're doing a different quest there. And then season 2 brought in more of the plot and like the overarching stuff. So this is still sort of seeming to be a little bit aimless. It's like giving some backstory on Boba, but it's mainly like just different quests in the 2 episodes so far. So hopefully, for me, I'm sure people are eating that up as Star Wars fans. If that's your thing, the serial style, then they're like loving it. But for someone who's like me, who wants more of like the overarching story versus just like a one-off, I'm holding out hope, because I don't know if I said it last week, but there was some speculation that like, oh, we only got one trailer. It was a very limited trailer because people think that things are just going to get absolutely crazy in this show, in the subsequent episodes. So I'm holding out hope that that's going to happen. But through episode 2, I'm watching it. It's not like a wake up at 3 a.m. and watch it kind of thing when it drops on Disney Plus by any means. But maybe the day after, I'll still watch it, but hoping that we can turn this thing around for episode 3 and what follows. But as I previously mentioned, also rewatching Euphoria, getting fired up for tonight, and I'm sure we'll have a lot to talk about after next week. So anything else that we missed before we dive into the news of the week, Johnny?
No, I think we can roll right along.
All right. Well, first up, not a ton of news this week. So just a couple little things that we want to hit on. 2 trailers that dropped this week. One is for a show and one is for a movie. At the theater, we have a new trailer for Moonfall, which is, we'd had previously had a trailer that made it seem a little bit more like actiony and like sci-fi. It was like still big, dumb, and crazy. But it was more like straightforward. And then this one made it a bit more comical. But it's the latest from Roland Emmerich. It hits theaters next month on February 4th. But the whole premise here is a mysterious force knocks the moon from its orbit around Earth and sends it hurtling on a collision course with life as we know it. And basically like this team of astronauts is going to try and maybe potentially blow up the moon. We'll see how they end up solving it, but they're trying to save the world. And it's a pretty solid cast, I would say. We got Patrick Wilson, Donald Sutherland, Michael Pena, Halle Berry, my guy Samuel Tarly from Game of Thrones, John Bradley is in there. I know this is not one. Watching the trailer, it looks entertaining to me, but I don't expect it to be good whatsoever. I don't know if you even ventured into the second trailer. But do you have thoughts on this?
No, I mean, that first trailer was genuinely one of the worst trailers I think I've ever seen. I absolutely hated everything about it. It got secondhand embarrassment watching it like in the theater, because that's the thing, when you're in the theater you can't avoid it, like unless you want to just walk out or like cover your eyes and your ears, like you just have to take it. It just, I mean, maybe it'll be a fun popcorn kind of adventure. It'll get some people in the theater and give them a big screen experience, which is good. I think that's a great thing to have, especially with theaters potentially struggling and the COVID impact and everything. But I won't be there to find out, unfortunately. But if
you
other
will
people
be if it's
go,
the only thing we're reviewing this week.
Oh, brother.
No, I mean, I'm with you. I think it's going to be, like I said, big and dumb, but hopefully at least some entertainment value there rather than just being solely big and dumb. But that remains to be seen. But what I am more excited about, same weekend on Hulu, Pam and Tommy. This is the Pamela Anderson like docuseries. It's not a docuseries, I would say. How would you describe this, Johnny? Because it's like a dramatization. It's based on the true story of Pamela Anderson. Oh, Remy, come on now. Pamela Anderson and Tommy Lee, the drummer from Motley Crue, and their romance, and then the subsequent sex tape leak. So it's kind of wild, but it looks really good. We've got Lily James, Sebastian Stan in the leading roles there, and they're just like transformative looks here. I don't know if you're excited for this whatsoever, but I think it'll be a good thing to follow along with and something big for Hulu.
Yeah, it definitely could be a nice little boost for Hulu. I chose not to watch this one because I already saw the previous like teaser that they had come out. It did look genuinely like interesting and like fun, and gave me, I think this is directed or run by the same guy who did I, Tonya, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, it is.
I wasn't a huge fan of I, Tonya, but it does have a fun, like kind of almost mockumentary style to it that I think will lend itself nicely to this story. And of course, Sebastian Stan, Lily James, I think they are both talented actors, and I think they look like they are doing a pretty good job of inhabiting these quite famous and like well known, like their appearance and their kind of personality and mannerisms and everything. Human, real life people. So I definitely think, and Seth Rogen, I'm a huge fan of his. Of
right,
course.
you've got Seth Rogen and Nick Offerman in there as well.
Yeah, exactly.
As
Nick Offerman.
the two pirates who steal the sex tape.
So yeah, I'm super like stoked about them. I think being in this, and there's a lot of potential here. It'll be curious to see whether or not it actually kind of all pans out and is received well. But I think there's definitely good potential, and it's hard to find. I think a lot of the best like series or miniseries or whatever you want to call them, limited series, are often like dramas, or at the least like dramedies. Whether you're thinking about Succession or White Lotus, or like two examples of like kind of the more dramedy focused ones. This looks more like a straight up comedy. Like this doesn't really look like it's taking itself seriously at all. Like it looks, at least from what I've seen, it looks like it's going for like a pretty humorous tone across the board, and just like kind of trying to focus on just how crazy the situation is, and kind of finding, even though it's a messed up thing that is happening to them, like it's kind of finding the humor in it in some way. So again, we'll see what it ultimately plays like. Not sure, like I'm really not sure if I'm going to actually end up watching it necessarily. It is also just like right around the corner, so I don't know what will be like really going on at that time, TV wise or movie wise. So maybe it'll be
you're just going to be in the theater all weekend watching Moonfall over and over again. You can't catch Pam and Tommy.
So we'll see for sure. But I don't know. It's not one of my most anticipated things, but I think there is some promising, interest-worthy things happening here.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't one that was necessarily like super high on my radar beyond just having seen like oh my God, Lily James is unrecognizable, like as Pamela Anderson, like seeing the first look at them in costume and as those characters. But the second trailer gave a lot more context to the story, and I guess this was we had previously gotten like a teaser, so this is like the first trailer, and so it got me a bit more excited, and knowing that it's so close, right around the corner, that I'll probably be at least checking out the first couple episodes to see how it is. But the final piece of news, we may have jinxed ourselves last week when we were saying that John Wick 4 moved and we were expecting more things to follow, and they didn't. And then like a day or two later, the announcement came that Morbius is moving 3 weeks ahead of its release date. So it's supposed to come out January 28th and has now been moved to April 1st. This is not a joke, not an April Fool's prank. The movie might be, depending on its quality. But this is the 7th release date for Morbius now, which is, we used to give New Mutants shit for moving around quite a bit, but now this has surpassed even that. And I know this isn't one that like either of us were necessarily like thrilled for, but it's still a noteworthy departure from January. And the conspiracy here, there are a couple different methods of thought here, and I feel like one has like significant more weight than the other. First one is just what most likely happened is that, okay, let's just get this out. It's, even though it's not going to be like Spider-Man No Way Home, it's on the heels of that. It's a superhero movie. It'll have a crowd. Let's get it out of like, hopefully to better times regarding COVID. We'll move it to April. Then some people on the internet have determined that, coinciding with the quotes from Andrew Garfield saying that he would love to play Spider-Man again, that this movie has been delayed 3 months to add a whole character and a whole plot to this movie and redo it. Johnny, do you put much stock in that theory?
No, I mean, I don't think that it's really not that difficult to figure out why they would move this movie. Like, obviously, I really don't think that they're going to be trying to put any Spider-Man stuff in this. I mean, that seems like it would take a lot of quick decision making and planning and moving things around.
Unless they like have a scene of just Andrew from that they shot at No Way Home, and we're gonna put it into like a post credits. Like, it's not like he's being added into the movie.
Right. So really, I mean, again, the only thing that I can really say with this is, yeah, it's been moved a lot. They're obviously trying to save it. You know, and to this point, they now have it past Spider-Man No Way Home. Like Spider-Man No Way Home is out. Morbius is going to be coming out after that movie, no matter what now, no matter when it comes out, whether it's a month later or it's 6 months later. We've all seen that movie. So we know that. And the real key thing here is that with regards to Sony, they kind of had a weird, honestly, their schedule was a little bit weird before they moved to this. So you had Spider-Man, the biggest movie in 2 years, coming out in December, right before Christmas. And then you had Morbius coming out like less than a month later in January, which I guess maybe the logic there was that they just felt like it would be kind of a dead zone and that there wouldn't be really much competition as far as blockbusters go, or like big budget, like comic book movies, which ended, I mean, that is true and accurate. I mean, that this was the only one slated really for this month. But what I think is ultimately the choice that pushed them to move, because then they had that in January, and then Sony, still the same studio, had Uncharted, their next big blockbuster kind of tentpole, in February, the month later. So that never really made a lot of sense to me. So I think what's going on here is that No Way Home is still making crazy amounts of money at the box office. It's really the big, almost sole box office, hit at the moment. And even this weekend, I think at the domestic box office, we're almost a month removed, about a month, 3-4 weeks now. And it made like over $30 million. So why would you try to force out Morbius at a time when people are still flocking to see Spider-Man? Are they really going to choose to see Morbius over Spider-Man at this point? Like, would most people choose that? I think from Sony's perspective, it's why cramp all these things together? Why not let Spider-Man basically run and have full run of the box office from when it came out before Christmas to when Uncharted comes out in February, later in February. So like 2 full months. Then you get Uncharted out, you see how well that can do. And then months later down the line in like April, or, whenever this is coming, April 1st, you get a decent, maybe it'll be just a decent little hit, and it won't be like a huge deal, but it'll make some money, and not detract from Spider-Man or anything. So I think that is the most logical explanation for this. I don't think it's them thinking, oh, well, it's a bad movie. Obviously, it's probably not going to be very good. I don't think that would be, again, a hot take to say that. But bad, good. They've put out 2 Venom movies now that are bad, and they've both made like over $500 million. The first one made like $800 million. The second one, even coming out of pandemic, was the biggest box office opening weekend before Spider-Man came and blew that out of the water. So whether it's good or not is not really the concern, in my opinion. I think it's really about just spreading their eggs and making sure that they have plenty of room to grow and hatch and everything, rather than putting them all cramped up next to each other. I think that's really the main concern. Whether another move, yeah, they've moved it a lot, but to me, that just makes it even more logical. Like, okay, you've waited 2 years at this point. What's another 4 months? Like, just, I think that's the logic Sony is kind of working with to this point.
Are you sure they're not adding Andrew Garfield? I mean,
you
laid out some pretty convincing stuff.
Maybe they are adding Andrew Garfield, but I'm not counting on any Andrew Garfield appearance.
No, not at all. That was pure sarcasm. I think you definitely laid that out with the breakdown of their release schedule and the fact that these movies don't have to be good to make money. So I think you're on track there. But hopefully this is the last of the moves that we're getting right now at this time. Hopefully it's just John Wick. Hopefully it's just Morbius, and we don't have to report on another shift next week. But that was it. A light news week this week. It's time to get into our first review, our only review of the episode before we head to most anticipated. So let's talk the 355. This is, like I said, our first new release review of the year. It's a international spy thriller. We've got a great cast here, but was the movie any good? We've got Jessica Chastain, Penelope Cruz, Diane Kruger, Lupita Nyong'o, Edgar Ramirez, and Sebastian Stan all leading the way. It's a spy thriller, but instead of, a Jason Bourne, a James Bond, which they even reference James Bond in this movie. We've got 4 female leads, badass women, just absolutely kicking ass and taking names across the globe. So those 4 women, Jessica Chastain, Penelope Cruz, Diane Kruger, and Lupita Nyong'o, are all secret agents from their respective countries, and they all come together to solve this mystery to save the world. But Rotten Tomatoes has not treated this movie kindly, at least the critics have not. It's got a 27% critic score. It's got an 82% audience score, though, so a pretty huge disconnect. I feel like that's kind of the trend, though, with these January movies, that especially something like this, which we're talking about Moonfall earlier. This was a fairly like popcorn movie. Like it's not great. The writing is thin. It's cliched, but there's fun action. There's a A-list cast. Like I'm gonna go have some popcorn and watch a movie. That's what this movie is. And for me, a 42 out of 100. I'm obviously not in the 80s with the audience, but I don't think it was nearly as bad as critics had expected or had described it to be. Even our very own Joel Winstead wrote the review for our website, and he gave this 1 star out of 5. So he's in the 20 range as well. But I think they were too harsh on the 355. Quick plot synopsis. When a top secret weapon falls into mercenary hands, wildcard CIA agent Mason Mace Brown will need to join forces with rival badass German agent Marie, former MI6 ally and cutting-edge computer specialist Khadijah, and skilled Colombian psychologist Graciela on a lethal breakneck mission to retrieve it, while also staying one step ahead of a mysterious woman, Lin Mi Sheng, who is tracking their every move. As the action rockets around the globe, from the cafes of Paris to the markets of Morocco to the opulent auction houses of Shanghai, the quartet of women will forge a tenuous loyalty that could protect the world or get them killed. So, like I said, globetrotting, check. Secret agents, check. Action sequences, check. Like it hits all of the boxes. Thinking recently about, this is way better than Red Notice. I mean, not the same premise, but in the same vicinity of the international espionage, the big multiple locations going around the globe. Very similar to one that I talked about a couple months ago in The Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard, as far as like the top secret weapon here is like this. It's I don't even remember what they called it, but it's like a program on a USB type. And like this program basically gives access to like control all technology, and they can like crash planes with it and like black out countries and just like do all sorts of like, it's just this like end all be all technological power, which is very similar to what happened in what they were trying to get the MacGuffin in Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard, but again executed better here without the Ryan. I notice I'm naming 2 Ryan Reynolds spy movies that were not good from last year. So the best thing this has going for it is no Ryan Reynolds. But like I said, this movie was not nearly as bad as I expected. It's very cliched. So people who are pinning that on it, it's very accurate. Like I said, they do the globe trotting. They do there's a double crossed agent. All 4 of them are framed spies on the run. It's checking all of those boxes in the genre tropes, and never really does anything beyond just having like 4 female leads to differentiate itself from, your stereotypical blueprint. So plenty of cliches there. It's over 2 hours. So if we cut a couple cliches, we could get this down to $1.45 and it would be much better. Because the first half was.
Hold up, how long is it?
It's 221.
Are you kidding me?
No, 220. Wait, it's 2 hours. Sorry, it's 122 minutes. So it's 2 hours and 2 minutes.
Okay.
Man,
That
math.
could be worse.
Math is hard. No, but when I will say I was like expecting to go see this movie and it to be like an hour and a half, and then right as I sat down, I like pulled it up to check, and it was a big surprise there.
I just
but
realized you had to go to the theater to see this.
I did go to the I was like, I haven't been since Spider-Man. I have my Regal card, like might as well. Didn't have anything else going on.
It feels and looks so much like a Netflix movie to me. I honestly, and we were talking.
I was curious. It's a Universal movie, so I didn't know if there was like a simultaneous Peacock release or not. Yeah. I'm still not sure on that.
It's not to my
knowledge. Strictly theaters, but with that runtime, you know, it takes a bit to get going. The first half was kind of rough, like laying the foundation. You meet all the women, they have to come together. But then that second half takes off a bit more. Because it's most of the action, like there's no questioning the talent of the actresses, of the stars here, and there's a great chemistry between them, and they're trying their best to like elevate the story that they've been given, the dialogue that they've been given. So like it's fun seeing them and being around them. So like once they are all together kicking ass, it's a good time. Not the best time, but it's a decently entertaining time. But you know, it just too many cliches, too many clumsy setups to kind of make this anything more than just your, you know, I feel like this is like a big, like 4 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon on TNT in like 3 years. You know, it's one of those sort of like afternoon action movies that just have like a Taken 3 or like something like that, where it's just like always on cable TV. But yeah, that's my quick rundown. I know you've got a couple questions that you wanted to, because you're dying to learn more about the 355.
Oh, absolutely.
But let's hear it.
Well, one critique that I had heard, which is something I was curious about, because Simon Kinberg, who directed this, he's not like known for directing action, I would say. He has, as far as directing films, he directed previously Dark Phoenix, which was the last X-Men movie, which was
quite literally, I fell asleep during that movie in the theater.
One of the worst X-Men movies to date, if not the worst, which is saying a lot because there have been some bad X-Men movies. But he's mostly known as being a producer, and he's written some stuff. So he's a talented producer. He's produced things like Logan, Deadpool, The Martian. So of course he's responsible, you know, for a lot, you know, producing a lot of the good X-Men movies as well, like Logan, like I mentioned. So obviously there's something there, but as a director, you know, he's not known for directing really at all, let alone action. And his only movie he's directed so far is a terrible movie from most accounts. So how did he do directing this movie, especially with regards to the action? I had heard some complaints with regards to things like the editing, the choreography, etc. And this is its build is a big action movie, so I think if it's going to work, it's going to need those things to kind of flash.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I can't recall any like just painful moments of editing or like anything that was like made me realize like that I was watching something horrible. So as far as that goes, maybe someone with like a more technically savvy eye, like someone like you, would have bigger issues with it. But for me, who was just, like I said, going on a Saturday night, to be, my expectations for this after editing Joel's 1-star review were very, very low. So to go in, I was pleasantly surprised to give it a 42 out of 100. So as far as like the editing went, the directing went, there wasn't anything that really like stood out as being objectively bad or like noticeably bad. I mean, it's very violent. There's a ton of shooting, a ton of action. It's not, you know, like I can't recall any like spurting blood or anything. Like it's not gory violent. But there's a ton of casualties in this movie. So there's no shortage as far as like the big action sequences go. And the final two in particular are like, they're fun, they're entertaining. Everything leading up to that is like serviceable. But the last two were particularly enjoyable.
All right, all right. Yeah, I'm kind of surprised by the violence because I didn't really get that from the trailers necessarily. But so okay, and then of course you were talking about kind of the cliche stereotypes of like this kind of movie, is a spy action thriller. And the cast is very good, of course. I mean, everyone knows. I think at this point, it's not unpopular to say that Jessica Chastain, Lupita Nyong'o, Penelope Cruz, among others, are very, very talented, very well known. But as far as so that would be what would get you in the theater, I think. But I think the success of these kinds of movies isn't so much on the actor a lot of the time. I feel like you need something on paper or in the performance to get you interested or keep you engaged while watching the movie. So whether it's Daniel Craig as James Bond and his characterization there, his performance, and then of course the writing, and then or even Ethan Hunt, I think with Tom Cruise in the Mission Impossible movies would probably be another good example that you genuinely like and care about his character. How is this movie in terms of that?
I would say, again, like you said, the performances are good. The actresses are doing their best. They're extremely talented. The characterization, the way that the characters are written, is fairly clumsy. I mean, like for the most part, they kind of like all come together, and then like after having kind of competed a little bit, and then they all come together, and as they're getting to know each other, it's basically like they all sit around a table and are like, so what was your first mission? And they give their backstory and like, what's your first mission? And they all kind of like give a peek. We spend more time with Jessica Chastain. She's the main character from the start. So we get an idea of her and her character beforehand, but the rest is it's kind of like pulling them in. It's not, very nuanced or very, I guess, layered to their characterization. I'd say the biggest characterization is the fact that, so basically Chastain is an active spy, and so is Diane Kruger. And then Lupita Nyong'o was like basically like retired and got out of it and was pulled back in. But then Penelope Cruz, her character is like a psychologist for the Colombian agency. So she's not like a field agent. She's not used to like the violence and the action. And so like she's kind of the most compelling in the sense that like she's very out of her element, and she's got 2 kids at home and her husband, and like is not, about this life. So that adds some interesting obstacles for her and just development as a whole. So beyond that though, I would say like Diane Kruger's is very she's like the cold one of the group who kind of has this mysterious past, and it's kind of like, again, cliched the way that her background is explored. And then unfortunately I feel like Lupita Nyong'o is like the best out of these, out of a very talented group, and we don't really get much for her overall beyond just like her biggest character trait is that she has like a boyfriend back home who she wants to get back to. So that's kind of disappointing.
All right. Well, that does not sound very. I'm not engaged, and I'm just listening to you talk about it. Maybe it's a better movie, but and on top of that, and you've hit on him a little bit like already, of course, but Sebastian Stan, he is like the main, I would say, male figure in this movie from what I've seen, at least in the marketing. I'm really glad I don't have to watch any more trailers for this. I will say that I hate to poo-poo on this movie at all, but given that I haven't seen it. But Sebastian Stan, of course, he's most well known for being Bucky, being Winter Soldier in the MCU. That's really his bread and butter. But he has had some roles in movies outside of that. I think the ones that come to mind for me at least would be like I, Tonya, where he did pretty good, like more dramatic, like interesting supporting turn. And then he has a smaller role in The Devil All the Time, which was that Netflix movie with Tom Holland and Rob Battenbat from what was 2020, I think, I guess.
Yeah, that's a while ago.
Again, a smaller role in that, so nothing crazy. And then we talked already about how he has that Hulu series coming up, Pam and Tommy. So how is he in this as far as like action? I think again, people would probably be expecting him to be, doing some stunts, doing some fight scenes, etc. But again, we talked about characterization. Sounds pretty weak. Sounds pretty mid. Did he fare any better, or at least was his action interesting? How did any of that roll over from the MCU?
I would say he's involved in some action, but not a ton. There's a large. I'll go ahead and throw the spoiler alert out there. So if anyone has made it this far and doesn't want the rest of this movie spoiled, go ahead and skip ahead to our top 5 most anticipated movies of 2022. But you've had your warning. So the whole, like, he's a good guy. He's an agent for the CIA with Chastain's character, and their partners have had this like flirtation on and off, and then on their mission he's killed, which is like in the first third of the movie, the first act. And obviously he does not actually get killed, but we are led to believe that he has been killed. And then it's later revealed that he had his death like staged because he's actually working with the enemy, and he's the one who's like trying to get this device and sell it for $500 million to a customer, and that he's like been secretly funding like terrorism and stuff. So he has like a bit of an interesting character arc, and he is like the main antagonist really, who's like going toe to toe with these women but that's not, again, we think he's a good guy in the first act. He's not even in the second act because we think he's dead, and then he comes back at the end and is playing a bad guy, and he's like very ruthless, which is fun to see because we're used to seeing kind of like the post Winter Soldier wholesome side of him. But I'd say he's one of the more interesting characters. Again, he's got, in those final 2 action sequences, he's there, but he's not, going Winter Soldier on people for the most part, which is kind of a disappointment. If you got him there, you might as well use him. But yeah, that's, I would say that's the extent of the Sebastian Stan role here.
Well, I don't think I can take any more disappointment, Zach. So
it's okay. I know we already
say no more.
We went through all of the cliches, all of the. I would say, like, if you're just looking for, if you're a film critic, don't go. Like, I mean, who's to say? If you're someone who like looks at movies for like with a critical eye, you can probably steer clear of this. If you're just looking to go to the movies and like watch an action adventure spy movie, then like sure, it's no better or worse than like your standard like action blockbuster. Not talking about the great ones, not talking about Mission Impossible Fallout or James Bond or those level, but your run of the mill like studio spy movie, like this fits right in.
All right. Say less.
I wish I had.
Take it back.
Take it back. Well, now let's get down to business here. We are going top 5 most anticipated movies of 2022. Looking ahead to the rest of the year, we will be alternating, as always, counting down from 5 to 1. I'm curious here. I know we've both made our lists. Strategy-wise, it's not like a draft or anything, but like, if a movie's coming out sooner, are you anticipating it less because you're like almost there, or is it still like the top pick?
I think for me, it's fair to say, and it'll be very clear once we go through this list, that no would be my answer to that. It doesn't matter how soon it is. And quite honestly, I'm grateful. Because of course everyone knows last year Dune was not only my most anticipated film of the year, but probably my most anticipated of all time. And it was kind of a bummer waiting all year, not gonna lie, because when you're that excited for something and that focused on something, like it was pretty much all I could think about for a good stretch of time, not only just last year, but during the pandemic as well. And so it was a lot of looking forward to that and just wanting to get there and skipping ahead. So it'll be nice, I think, this year, once I get one of these, the big one out of the way for me, which again, not to spoil anything, but you'll see. I'm just going to be kind of
enjoy the rest of the year.
I'm going to be on a nice breezy joyride the rest of the year. Just like, because this year, quite frankly, it has a lot of potential to be a banner year for film. like a 2014, a 2019, even 2017 like level with regards to big blockbuster filmmaking from great filmmakers and big franchises, but also really interesting low mid-budget films, again, from well-known filmmakers, both drama, prestige picks, genre films. So it has a lot of potential. And of course, that's all, you have to put an asterisk on it because there's always potential for every single project to get delayed, not only till later in the year, but out of the year. So we'll see. And of course, I'm also going to put this on the top that the movies that I list here, some of them do not have confirmed release dates. Some of them might end up going to 2023, but they're all finished filming. They're all in post-production, and there's really no reason that they shouldn't release this year. So I'm going to just say that at the top and run with it that way. But yeah, I'm excited, very excited for a lot of movies. And we'll run through plenty of honorable mentions, I'm sure, to get us started.
Right. And I also, I think we may need to, depending on how this list shakes out, we may need to circle back come July and do a most anticipated of the second half of the year, just to kind of check the status with the way that you're alluding to what's going to be at the top of your list, and that being out of the way early on. It could be fun to check out some of those later players. But I've got 2 honorable mentions before we get started. I think you have some as well that you just said. So let's get this thing on the road. Honorable mention number 1 for me is Nope from Jordan Peele. Obviously, Get Out. Obviously, Us. 2 movies that we on the podcast are pretty big fans of. Excited to see what he does next. And I'll leave it at that. I don't know if that is on your list or if that's an honorable mention, or if you have anything to chip in here.
Yeah, I mean, certainly very excited for it. I wasn't crazy about Us, but I am, Get Out as a classic, a modern classic, and the cast is irresistible. So definitely looking forward to it.
And my second honorable mention is Thor: Love and Thunder. I mean, I would say you'll see as we go through my list, it's very blockbuster heavy. I did not venture into the smaller films here because while I am excited for a lot of those, I think the ones that have the biggest fandom and the biggest anticipation, at least for me, are usually bigger blockbusters. So Thor: Love and Thunder, huge fan of Ragnarok, excited Taika is back. And I think this has good potential to be to follow up Ragnarok and be that same tier of Marvel. Obviously, the first and second Thor are smaller, but we have now seen the potential with Thor in good hands. So hopefully that can live up to the hype. We'll get some great Korg moments as well, and keep it rolling in the MCU. So I know that's one of multiple projects for the MCU next year. But let me pass it over to you, Johnny, for any of your honorable mentions.
All right, so yeah, I'm gonna buzz through a bunch of them real quick. So I agree with those 2 that you said, so I'm not going to touch on those. I definitely looking forward to Thor: Love and Thunder and Jordan Peele's Nope. But for me, there's also a lot of smaller films. So we have Florian Zeller's The Son, which is the follow-up to The Father. Hugh Jackman is in this, Vanessa Kirby, Anthony Hopkins, Laura Dern, awesome cast. Really looking forward to that. There's also going to be, hopefully we're going to get Alex Garland's next film, which is partnered with A24. So really looking forward to that. Of course, he did Ex Machina with A24 as well, which was one of my favorite sci-fi films ever. And Annihilation, his last film, is another of my favorite sci-fi films ever. So Jesse Buckley is starring in that. Then we also have The Fabelmans from Steven Spielberg, of course. Steven Spielberg, not getting any younger. So I would say the number of films that he has left is probably kind of limited. And he's coming off of maybe his best film in like 20 plus years with West Side Story, which I was a big fan of. I'm looking forward to him doing like a smaller semi-autobiographical drama starring Michelle Williams, Paul Dano, and Seth Rogen. Really stoked for that. And then some of these that I think are going to be on your list, I'm going to wait and get to because we can just discuss those kind of together.
Let's do it.
But the other one that I'm going to mention before we get to those is The Northman from Robert Eggers. I don't think I've ever seen a really good Viking epic, like historical epic. Like a good Viking film is pretty hard to come by, I would say. And this looks suitably epic, suitably big budget, kind of larger scale. It's probably more like a mid-budget film, maybe 40-50 million, but the cast is stacked. I really liked the Lighthouse. I really liked The Witch. So I'm very much looking forward to this movie. I hope everyone will go out and support it when it comes out in theaters in April.
There you have it. Great list of honorable mentions. But let's get down to the main event. Starting at number 5, I'll kick us off here with, I know I said a lot of blockbusters. This is the one exception on my list, and it is a great exception because it is coming from the Queen, Olivia Wilde. I've got Don't Worry, Darling at number 5 on my list. Hits theaters September 23rd, 2022. And as someone who lives and breathes Booksmart, my favorite movie of 2019, one of my favorite movies of all time, I am so excited to see what Olivia Wilde has cooked up next. 1950s housewife living with her husband in a utopian experimental community begins to worry that his glamorous company may be hiding disturbing secrets. We've got Florence Pugh, we've got Harry Styles in the leading roles. Then just a who's who of other stars. Olivia Wilde is in this movie as well. Nick Kroll, Timothy Simons from Veep fame, Jonah, of course. Chris Pine is in this, Gemma Chan. And I'm just very, very excited to see, like, if a director comes out on their first attempt and makes one of your favorite movies of all time, like, of course you're going to be fired up for their second movie. So Don't Worry, Darling. I'm sorry I didn't put you higher, darling, but you're number 5 on my list. I don't know if I don't see your list, Johnny, so I don't know. But if this is on your list, feel free to hop in here, or it might be an honorable mention.
Yeah, definitely an honorable mention. I liked Booksmart, not as much as you did, so I definitely understand why you have this so high up. But the cast here is very impressive. I'm looking forward to seeing those performances. And Olivia Wilde has a lot of promise as a filmmaker, and I'm looking forward to seeing her do something that seems a little bit darker and even more, more dramatic than Booksmart.
Right.
And it should be that's a fall festival film, I think, by all accounts. So I think that'll definitely get some good buzz and maybe go to TIFF and some other places like that. So I'm looking forward to it.
What do you have on your list at number 5, Johnny?
All right, this was super tough to buckle down. And honestly, you could probably slip all these around, but except for number 1, which is definitely my number 1. But at number 5, I'm gonna go with Mission Impossible 7 from Christopher McQuarrie, starring, of course, Tom Cruise and the good old gang that we have seen in previous films. Rebecca Ferguson, I love her, especially from Dune. Simon Pegg, Haley Atwell is joining the crew. Pom Klementieff is joining the crew from the Guardians of the Galaxy MCU films. Vanessa Kirby's back. Ving Rhames is back. So that's enough to get me excited. But of course, we know every Mission Impossible is going to bring a string of unbelievable, death-defying Tom Cruise stunts and just amazing action set pieces. And this is a franchise, and this legitimately might be my favorite franchise, like top to bottom. There's a lot of great franchises out there, but this one is so consistent, especially over the last decade. It is one that I've grown up with, even more than the Daniel Craig James Bond films, which I was a big fan of. But these, I love Ethan Hunt. I love the style of these movies, how the style has shifted over the years. But Christopher McQuarrie, he's taken it to another level. And Fallout is a masterpiece, not just of action filmmaking, but I think genuinely across the board has everything that you could want in a movie. And I think that it gets better and better. I've seen it like 6 or 7 times, I think. And I can only imagine this is going to be on the same level, if not somehow better. So I cannot miss that. And I can't wait to see it like on the big screen. I think that it'll be worth the wait, because it's been, by the time we see this, it'll be over 4 years since the last one. So the wait's killing me, but I'm ready.
Yeah, this is on my list as well, so I'll go ahead and talk about it. But this is my number 3, because going back to 2019, with Booksmart having come out that year, that held down the top spot. But when you look at my list, my rankings, I'm sorry, Fallout was 2018, right?
Yes.
Well, let's go back to 2018 then, because if you look at my rankings, that is a quick slip there. Pulling up the 2018 list instead, Mission Impossible Fallout was my number 2 movie of the year. So, if you've got your top movie of 2019 making a comeback and your second movie of 2018, it's going to be a good year. So I'm very excited for another edition of Mission Impossible. We've seen Tom Cruise riding a bicycle off, or not a bicycle, a motorcycle off of a ramp off the side of a mountain. Like, say less, as you said earlier. That's all I need. Like, I have no doubt that my man is out there risking his life for this movie, and also holding his crew very accountable for COVID safety. So I am thrilled that this movie's coming out, and we've got the release date, which this is shuffled around a little bit, but September 30th, 2022 as of now. So hopefully we can end the summer with a big bang from Tom Cruise and co. Number 4 on my list, Avatar 2, which kind of surprised me when I broke it all down as I was making my list. But there's just so much. It's been so long. The storyline here, like the way anyone who was of age to kind of be in movie theaters and aware of pop culture back in 2009 when Avatar came out, the first one, like the real 3D glasses, the packed theaters, the hype around it, making it before Endgame the highest grossing movie of all time. Like it was the biggest thing that people immediately like forgot about like a year or two later, like it's not like it was forgotten, but like to be that big, it's shocking how little it is like referenced or brought up or just like in the public eye. But obviously there had been a sequel, a third one, a fourth one, a fifth one, all mapped out for a very long time, and it's been delayed so many times, and then with the COVID delays, like it's shuffled around so much. But the stills that we have seen so far from this movie, what we have been told to expect as far as filming underwater and cast members holding their breath for 9 minutes at a time to film scenes, like this is going to be absolutely insane. You're adding Kate Winslet in here as well to the cast, so it's only getting better. I really do want to go back and just kind of take another look at Avatar, because I haven't watched it since like the early 2010s, I would imagine. So obviously that's going to be something that needs to happen before this hits theaters. But after this long, expectations are very high. And, James Cameron, I don't think that with his passion for sci-fi and the ocean, I don't think he's going to disappoint putting those two together, especially with this much time to perfect it. So that's coming out at the end of the year. We have to wait all the way until December 16th is the current release date for that. So fingers crossed we don't have another pushback there. But that's number 4 on my list.
All right, so I got to reveal that this was my number 6. This was my 6th man on this countdown.
Tough.
It was it's tough to cut. The one thing that gave like Mission Impossible the edge, for example, is that I have just so much invested in that and really love Tom Cruise and like that storyline. But Avatar 2, yeah, I mean, it's Jim Cameron, ladies and gentlemen. The man literally does not know how to miss. I very distinctly remember seeing Avatar in theaters. I thought it was I saw it a couple times in theaters, actually, I'm pretty sure. And it was definitely an unforgettable experience. I have no doubt that this will be just as, if not more, unforgettable. I think he's going to take the story in some interesting directions. I think the technology is going to be... The thing about this is, and people are overlooking it, they want to doubt it, do whatever. They'll watch 6 MCU projects a year gleefully, even if they're kind of mid and look ugly and all these other things. This movie is going to be one of the most visually stunning films ever made and will be unlike anything you have ever seen. So again, I know that because it's James Cameron, and I know that because it's Avatar 2. And it's been over 10 years since the last one. He's invented new technology. They're filming underwater for real. It's not like Aquaman where they do the dry for wet situation. It is legitimately underwater. They're holding their breath for 5-6 minutes at a time to film some of this stuff. It's gonna be unlike anything you've seen, and that is enough for me to put it up that high and to be excited for it. I really, really hope that movie does not move even a day, because I really want to see it this year. And I really do trust that it will be something worthwhile, and we'll get people excited about this franchise again, and we'll get them looking forward to the other 3 or 4 sequels that he probably wants to do.
But what is your 4?
Yeah, so on that note, my number
told
4
us
is
your 6.
It's going to be the return of Damien Chazelle with Babylon. Again, this is coming out Christmas Day, so not very far removed from Avatar 2. This is one of my top 3 or 4 filmmakers, I would say. Again, very formative for me. Whiplash, when I saw it my senior year of high school, like blew my head off. Absolutely adore that film. La La Land did something similar to me when I was in college, and then First Man also did the same. All 5 out of 5 for me. I really love those films. And it's been a while. Like I said, it'll be over 4 years for this film as well since his last one. Cannot wait to see it. Brad Pitt, Margot Robbie, Catherine Watterson, Samara Weaving, Tobey Maguire. It's a stacked cast, and Spike Jonze is going to be in there. Lucas Haas, Olivia Wilde. It goes on and on and on. And not only that, but it's set in Hollywood during the transition from silent film to talkies. It's focusing on a mixture of historical and fictional, characters. It's been described as The Great Gatsby on steroids, which I am all about. The Great Gatsby is one of my favorite books. I love Singing in the Rain, which also sounds similar to kind of the premise that they're going for here. This doesn't sound like it's going to be a musical, but I have no doubt that audio sound is going to be a big part of the movie. So technically he always hits. I think storytelling wise, he always hits, and acting, cinematography, the costumes will be phenomenal. I'm sure there's just a lot to enjoy here, and it's an original script, even though if it's influenced by a few other things, like I just mentioned, it's going to be an original, fairly big budget production. And again, I just hope people will go out and support it and see it. And I'm sure I will see it like probably at least 2 or 3 times in theaters. But yeah, cannot wait for that.
Yeah, big La La Land fan, big Whiplash fan. It was not like I appreciated First Man, but didn't like love it like you did. I know you saw that movie so many times. But I'm excited to get back with Chazelle, and hopefully, for me at least, get back on track with the 2 that I love so much. So I'm definitely excited for this. It definitely just missed out on my top 5, and I should have listed it as an honorable mention earlier. But I'm going to put you back on the spot, since my number 3 was Mission Impossible 7, and we already talked about it. Johnny, what is your 3?
My number 3, again, this is tough as far as shuffling it, but I'm going with Ari Aster's Disappointment Boulevard. We'll see if that name actually sticks, if that's the real title. I don't know what the hell to think about this movie. What we had heard from multiple other reports when he was coming out with his next project was that he was going to be doing Beau is Afraid, which is based on a script that had been floating around. It was described as one of the most disturbing, depraved, terrifying scripts like that had yet to be produced. It was floating around. Of course, anyone that's familiar with Ari Aster, he did Hereditary, 5 out of 5 film for me. He did Midsommar, 5 out of 5 film for me. So he's quickly moving up the ranks for me as a filmmaker. And
right.
The log line for this movie is an intimate, decade-spanning portrait of one of the most successful entrepreneurs of all time. But we also know, based on set picks and on some listings, that Joaquin Phoenix is playing a character named Beau. And of course, Beau is Afraid, again, was the name of that other project that we'd heard about. So I don't know what the hell this actually is. I think it might be a misdirect. Maybe it's the real thing. It's just a Disappointment Boulevard. It's going to be some sort of like drama, some big epic drama with this decade-spanning entrepreneur. I don't know. I think it's very exciting, though, that there's that much mystery around it. And of course, Joaquin Phoenix, one of the greatest actors of all time, one of the greatest living performers, maybe the best actor working currently in the business. And he has only done 1 film since he won the Oscar for Joker, and that was Come On, Come On, one of my favorite films of 2021. I thought he was great in that. And this looks like this is something where he's really going to sink his teeth into it. I mean, if you've seen Toni Collette in Hereditary, probably one of the best performances you'll ever see. Florence Pugh in Midsommar, no less stunning for me. I thought she was incredible. Still my favorite performance of hers, I think. And Joaquin Phoenix, again, the 2 of these guys working together, there's no like shortage of hype for me on this. So that is my number 2. or 3 rather. It could be number 2 if I really, again, shifting it around. It's whatever, but it's definitely very high on the list for me. No set release date yet, but we know that it is in the pipeline. So, and it's A24 as well, who did his first 2 films from Ari Aster. So another A24 banger.
That's a recipe for success right there.
Exactly.
Yeah, this was not on the list that I was looking at to reference. So I regretfully did not list this as an honorable mention. But I will now throw it out there as an honorable mention. But because I hate to make you do 3 in a row, Johnny, but because of the way that I think this is going to shake out so that we can talk about things all together, what is your number 2?
Oh boy. So my number 2 is Martin Scorsese's Killers of the Flower Moon. It is from Apple. Apple is helping produce with Paramount. They're helping distribute it as well for streaming and in theaters. I mean, what else is there to say? It's Martin Scorsese, one of the greatest living filmmakers. Again, he is another person like Spielberg who's getting older. We don't know how many he's got left in him. I love his work. I'm a big fan of his, especially recently between Wolf of Wall Street, Silence, The Irishman with Netflix. I'm very excited that they are partnering with Apple. Apple is really on the come up when it comes to producing and distributing. I'm very much I think that this was a good move for Scorsese and for Paramount to get them on board. And the cast, I mean, it's Jesse Plemons, Leonardo DiCaprio, Robert De Niro. It has all the ingredients. Of course, from a production standpoint, the crew is unreal. All the set photos have been amazing. Lily Gladstone is the female lead as well. Brendan Fraser has a role in this movie. So all the acting, it's going to be a banger on that front. And then of course, it's a big, major, epic period piece. It's going to span a decent amount of time, and it has a budget of around $200 million from what has been reported. The sets are huge. The attention to detail is looking magnificent. So I'm thinking this could genuinely be, the reason this is so high up on this list is I think this could legitimately be one of Scorsese's all-time best films and one of the all-time best historical epics, crime epics. And it tells also a very important story, covers a very important story of exploitation and murder of members of the Osage Nation in Oklahoma. And it's just a story that a lot of people may not be familiar with, but it is based on a true story. It's based on a book that covered this. And I think it has a lot of potential to be an important story, not only a great one. And I think if I had to bet on a best picture winner for next year right now, it would probably be this one. So no release date yet. I would imagine it'll be an award season time. We'll see if it goes to festivals or not, but this is definitely way up there.
Well, time to get down to business, because my number 2 is The Batman. And I can only assume that is what you were referencing as your number 1, Johnny. Is that correct?
It is indeed.
It is indeed. And it is actually almost here. We only have to wait a couple more weeks until March to check this out. So the celebrations will start early. But this could easily be number 1 for me. But because of knowing that you were going to have it at 1, wanting a little diversity on the list, and also what I had referenced earlier about it being so close that if I want this list to be more relevant for a longer time, that movie is coming out so soon. So anyway, number 2 for me, The Batman. So excited from what we've seen so far, what we know about this. I don't need to see any more. I'm just ready to see the movie. Robert Pattinson looks fantastic as Batman. Matt Reeves has proven himself time and time again. And if the Planet of the Apes films are any indication, and what we've seen so far of this, that this is just going to be to quote Johnny Sobchak, the definitive version of Batman on screen. And I can't wait to check this out and to see what else is to come from these movies, from this group of people tackling the Batman. And I'm going to pass it to you, Johnny, because I know that you're just itching to get started.
Yeah. I mean, I've spoken a lot about this movie at this point. Everyone knows how excited I am. it's my Dune this year, without a doubt. So I'm very pleased that we get to see it nice and early in March. I think this is the earliest film release of this magnitude and this hype this early in the year, probably since Black Panther in 2018, which seems like a decade ago at this point. But it's gonna be over 4 years ago here pretty soon. And yeah, March 4th, I think, is gonna be a good date for this movie to do well and get audiences into the theater. Yeah, the cast, the crew, Greg Fraser on the camera, Michael Giacchino on the score. The costumes look phenomenal. Production design, phenomenal. Everything they're doing visually looks exactly what I would want from a modern Batman movie that is comic accurate, but still doing its own spin on things. Robert Pattinson. I mean, this could be one of his great performances. I mean, this could go down as one of his great performances, and I'm sure there will be more Batman work from him with regards to acting and appearances. But this is his first shot at it, and this is going to be our first impression. And I think, of course, that's always important. So I have no doubt he's going to deliver. Paul Dano is primed to give like the best villain performance since, you know, Heath Ledger's Joker potentially. It looks like it could be on that level as far as his menace and his he's dropping bars left and right. You know, people are going to be quoting this just like they've been doing with Ledger's Joker and Tom Hardy's Bane for the last 10 years. I just really think that this is all the ingredients for something really, really special, especially in a marketplace where a lot of the comic book movies, a lot of superhero movies are just very similar, especially if, you know, on the MCU side of things. It's hard. They're differentiating. They're trying to branch out more and more, especially with the TV projects. But this looks like a great balance of dark, but, you know, charming and sexy and intriguing and violent and fun and stylistically, again, just looks really bang on. Tonally looks bang on. And I think it's really going to surprise people. I think that there's going to be stuff in here that they're not expecting. I think, you know, in a lot of different regards, but I'm expecting a 2 hours, 20 minutes, 2.5 hour crime mystery action movie, psychological thriller epic. And I think that's just something different. I think it's just something different, and it looks different enough from the Nolan movies, looks different enough from the Tim Burton movies and the recent Batfleck appearances as well, to be fresh, and all the hype is there. It's not even dissipated even slightly since the first trailer came out in 2020. So I just can't wait. I need it here. I just, that's all I can think about, because this most likely, given what the slate is looking like, we'll see if I end up popping in for, you know, Uncharted or something like that. But this will probably be my first movie that I see in theaters this year. Again, we'll see if that changes, but for on the big major release calendar, this is looking like the first one. And I have no doubt, again, I'll see this 3, 4, maybe 5 times in IMAX, in Dolby. And it's really the only major release of March. So it's going to be the one to take up all the money and all the screens for that period, as long as it doesn't move or get delayed. So, yep, just serve it up. Matt Reeves, I trust you. To deliver the banger that we need.
100%. Just give it to us. That's all we need at this point. It's the only thing we're asking for. But number one for me, to mix things up a little bit, is Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse Part 1. Another superhero movie to throw on the list after talking about the Batman. But I would just say that I don't know if it's the current still like hype with No Way Home and just Spider-Man as a whole. Loving the character. It's always been like one of my favorites for as far as superheroes go. But the first Into the Spider-Verse was just so fantastic, so beautiful, did so much and changed so much and brought so many characters into this universe and had such a talented voice cast. We've only gotten that snippet of Across the Spider-Verse, but if that's any indication, and just knowing what we know about this franchise, about the first movies, I'm thrilled and curious and eager to see what comes next. You know, splitting this into part 1, part 2, what's the logic behind that decision? What is it going to be, like half of a movie? Is it going to be one movie and then the follow-up? Like I have questions, I have excitement. I'm just very eager for October to get here so that we can start to answer those and figure out what's happening. But love Miles Morales, love Gwen, Spider-Gwen, and I want to see what kind of crew they come up with to help them carry on here in this second adventure. I was surprised that this did not make it on your list. I figured it might be in there, but can I at least get an honorable mention?
Oh, this is definitely up there. Definitely top 10 at the very least. But yeah, and I will be quite frank. I mean, there's a lot of big, exciting comic book movies on the docket this year, the Batman being first and foremost. But number 2 for me is definitely Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse Part 1. And I really like the trailer. I think it gives you just a little good enough taste of what to expect from this story this time around. And I'm a huge fan of the first one. Who isn't? I think it's a masterpiece. I think it's one of the best animated films ever made. And I think that they're really going to push the envelope visually and storytelling wise with this one. And yeah, this is my number 2 for comic book movies, superhero movies this year. I'm expecting nothing less than amazing. I mean, to be quite honest. And I think it has the weekend of the first weekend of October is when it's releasing. So has a nice little release date there. I'm sure I'll see this one again a couple of times. I saw the first one a couple of times in theaters. I have the 4K Blu-ray. And I again, this will probably be the Oscar in a year from now, and change. This will be the Oscar winner for best animated feature. I have no doubt about that. So bring on all these different universes, bring on the new characters, the new voice cast.
Put Andrew Garfield in it.
Yeah,
that's all we need.
Throw everything in. But yeah, I'm stoked for this one.
There you have it. 2022. What a year we are about to have at the theater. Hopefully everything stays put. Hopefully everything stays as scheduled, because like you just heard, there's a ton to look forward to. Quick recap here. My top 5. Number 5, Don't Worry, Darling. Number 4, Avatar 2. Number 3, Mission Impossible 7. Number 2, The Batman. And number 1 most anticipated movie of 2022 is Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse Part 1. Johnny, you have Mission Impossible 7 at number 5. Number 4, Babylon. Number 3, Disappointment Boulevard. Number 2, Killers of the Flower Moon. And the one and only The Batman holding down the top spot. It's going to be a year. It's going to be a great, great year at the movies. I hope, like you said, that it can live up to the 2019, the 2014, those kind of epic years that we've had recently to get us back on track in the 2020s.
Yeah, we need it. I've said this. I tweeted this a month or 2 ago. I said that this year is shaping up to be, not a jump back to normal as far as maybe box office and viewership and all that, but I think product wise, I think we have a lot to look forward to, and it's going to be again, if everything goes according to plan, if not too many things get delayed, it's going to be one of the great years for movies, and at least since prior to the pandemic, but even before that potentially.
Definitely. And we will be here every step of the way chronicling whatever's coming out. Hopefully all of these movies will be on the list for our podcast. And we appreciate you all joining us week in and week out, supporting the podcast, supporting the website, our social medias, and being loyal followers of Inside the Film Room. So thank you again for tuning in today and every week.
Absolutely. Couldn't do it without you. Really appreciate you listening and supporting. While you're supporting, and to stay tuned with everything that we got going on, including giveaways, among other things, follow us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram, give us a like on Facebook, check us out on YouTube, where you can find all the podcast episodes, among other videos that can keep you nice and entertained and locked in. You can find those at Inside Film Room.
And while you're at it, be sure to subscribe to The Rewind, our newsletter. You can do that on our website, on our social media pages, and subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts. We're on Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, Google, Amazon, anywhere you can find a podcast. We are there. And come back next week for our review of the latest Scream movie. It's going to be a spooky one, and we will see you then.